Hello everyone, so this is Ania Lian again, and I have a good news for you today, which is most of the things you need for reading and writing and text analysis, you actually have them now. Sure, there is some detail that we will polish as we go, and I know you have some more questions, but the main structure for text writing and text analysis you already have. So what we will do now is to look if you can actually apply what you already know to different types of texts. So we know there are different types of texts. There are recipes for cooking, there are news reports, there are scientific papers, there are abstracts, so there's many of them. So far we've looked at fable as a genre. Fables have been written down only recently. Typically they were produced for oral communication. So thousands of years ago, people created these fables to pass the tribal wisdom to each other so that people or children especially would learn moral behavior. So in order to make these fables attractive and to keep the listener's attention, we had those word groups, remember, which spoke emotionally to the listener so that the listener could imagine how it is, what a torture it is to starve from hunger, or what a joy it is to be carefree, or how hard it is to work in the middle of hot summer. So that was the fable. Today we will look at abstracts. What is an abstract? Abstract is an outline. Do we need an outline? Typically undergraduate students do not use outlines for their assignments. Good or bad, I don't know, but if you make a presentation, for example, like you can see here, people have very little time and they would actually want to know what your presentation will be about. So a short outline, an abstract, would come handy. Another reason why I am using an abstract today is because it's a short text and I would like us to apply our new knowledge to different types of text, and at the moment we will work with short texts and we will move to larger text later on. So now we know what's an abstract. The abstract that I want to work with you today was written by me. Right? So an abstract is a summary of the paper that follows. Right? So there's the paper. And so the paper typically has a title, has the name of the author, affiliation, what university you belong to, your email address. Right. So, and typically scientists focus on abstracts only. And if a scientist thinks that the abstract is interesting enough, then they will read the paper. That's how important they are, those abstracts. We don't always write the best abstracts. It's very hard to write them. So you will see that even my abstract could have been written better, but it's good enough. Let's have a look. So here's the abstract that you just saw on my paper. So what we might do is give you time to read it for yourselves and apply the skills you have already to analyze the paper and to write, not the paper, the abstract, and to maybe write a summary of this abstract. Now, it's scary, maybe. There is no right or wrong way to go about it, but see if you can apply the skills you have learned so far, and if you can actually tell me if the abstract is written well, what problem is the abstract actually solving, how did the author, myself, went about addressing the problem, all of that. So I'll suggest now that Mr. Lukman stops the video and lets you focus on the text of the abstract, lets you play a little bit with the tools you remember you have from the fable, and if you can use them to tell a story about this abstract. Can you summarize it? And what else can you see in it? And then we will compare you will compare your analysis and your reflection in the class with the analysis that I will now present, and you will listen to after you've done your initial reflections. So I will now take you through the steps I have undertaken to analyze this abstract and to tell you how it was written. So the first thing I do myself, because I know my method very well, the first thing I do is actually to sequence the abstract, because I want to see whether the author actually identifies the problem well. So I want to see what the focus is, what the problem is, what kinds of perspectives were taken, and so on. So just because I said that the first sentence is the focus, it is not always the case in real life, but it should be. A well-written abstract or well-written paper should really have a nicely set up focus to enable the reader to actually know where we are. Right? So what's the focus of this paper? What the author is saying, we will be looking at neuroscience, the findings in neuroscience, because they are important for us, as the neuroscience has produced a lot of discoveries about how the brain learns and constructs information, right? So if educators deal with learning, it follows they should actually know something about how the brain works. So the focus here, neuroscience has something to say, right? There is neuroscience, and this paper will be looking at the evidence from neuroscience on how the brain learns and how it constructs information. Before I jump to disturbance, I want you to look at the structure of focus. Just look here, don't look anywhere else. I keep Indonesian here on that side because as you worked yourselves with this text, the Indonesian language might sort of be helpful, so you have it here for your reference. I don't know if it is any good, so you can actually correct the translation. So let's see here. The focus here is very long. It's a very long sentence. Clearly, there are word groups here that we could have gotten rid of, right? But for some reason, the author kept them in. So what's the most important structure here? Recently, we could get rid of. Due to the developments in medical technology, we could get rid of, right? So we could strike them all out. I'm not striking them out, I am just underlining them today, okay? So instead of striking them out, I'll just underline the things that don't need to be here. The field of neuroscience has been experiencing an unparalleled growth. Well, we could get rid of that too. Just growth. We now see that if we left focus just like this, the field of neuroscience has been experiencing growth, the focus wouldn't be communicating anything, right? Like it says, yeah, okay, it does have a core information, but what's missing? If we remove all of this, then what have we removed? Well, what we would have removed is things like breakthroughs. Oh my God, it is not just sort of like finding. This is a breakthrough. There are breakthroughs in neurosciences, and they not only breakthroughs, which means something extremely important is happening, but also they are related to knowing how the brain learns and how it constructs information. So if we removed all that, we would have lost the reader. But when we keep it, when we keep this piece of information, what happens? The reader goes, so curious, really? This is how you not only connect with the reader, this is the emotion, right? This is the word groups. The author inserted word groups to connect with the reader and to trigger curiosity and want the reader involved because the reader sees that maybe it's relevant to them. Brain learning. Oh my God, that's interesting. The reader might be intrigued. Maybe there is something in it for me. And why is the author saying recently, due to developments in medical technology? Why do we have to have it recently? Why didn't we just say this? Because recently is another emotional word. It says, wow, this is all very hot, just recent, just the information that I will present you in this paper is not only presents not only breakthrough evidence, but this evidence comes from technology which is very, very recent. You better read. If you think you knew something about the brain, you know nothing until you read this paper, right? That's why the author put this word recently. And it says, due to the developments in medical technology, right? We have now breakthroughs. So you better read if you want to be a teacher, right? So that's why so many word groups, even though having just this text in red theoretically would have been enough. But had we not have these word groups around the core, the text would be meaningless, would not intrigue anybody, wouldn't interest anybody, wouldn't connect with the need of the reader, which is to be on the cutting edge of knowledge about students, how students learn, how students think. So you can see how smart the author was and how consciously the author put all these words there in order to grab the reader before they reject this paper, right? So there are many articles written all over the world every day, and you are fighting for attention. So this particular abstract hopes that it will grab the reader with these, by linking to those, or tapping into those emotions of the reader. And the emotions are, oh, something recent, using new technology, something relevant to me about the brain sciences, right? So that's the focus. Now we will move to disturbance. Disturbance is about problems, identifying the problem. What's the problem that the article will address? And the problem, I don't know what problem you have thought about. You may stop the video and discuss now and compare what problem you felt the paper is addressing. Now, the paper, the way I here framed the problem is that the new findings from neuroscience need to be connected to education. But I didn't just want to connect it to education, I wanted to connect it to computer-assisted language learning. This is what CALL stands for. I might just type it. Yeah, so it became a little bit too that will do, it's fine. Right, so the aim of the paper, so the problem was how to link those findings with research in education, and specifically with research that looks into the use of computers to support language learning. So yes, there are findings, but the problem is to relate those findings to education, because the finding per se might be meaningless. So now they need to be related. Personally, I believe that it would be very good to say that this, in the abstract, this is important as the findings themselves as the relevance of the findings to education is not straightforward. That would have strengthened this point, right? So had I been writing this abstract today, I would have added this to strengthen the point and to make the disturbance stronger, and to illustrate to the reader that just reading neuroscience is not enough. There is some work needed to be done in order to understand how to apply it to learning or to teaching, right? So I think that this abstract would have benefited from this sentence. So we will leave it there. Okay, so as you can see, in here, when I'm writing the things that don't matter, we didn't have that sentence, right? So it could have been deleted. Well, but it's important that it is here because it helps the reader to make sense, and it also alarms the reader, right? So this is this emotion of making the reader warned, cautious, being cautious, that understanding, alarming the reader, making them cautious that findings themselves still need to be translated in order to be used in education. It is not very simple just to apply them straightforwardly. This may be why neuroscience is not very well integrated into education, because there is this need for understanding the implications of neuroscience. So we added it today to make this point, right? That not only the problem is not only to connect neuroscience and education, but this connection is not straightforward. And this paper is addressing this. So we have a dialogue here, the dialogue on disturbance, on the problem. So the findings are reviewed against the backdrop of a critique of current research, which continues to show resistance to change and shows unable to offer new directions to second language teachers. Pedagogues, I use the term pedagogues, educators, doesn't matter. Same word. Right, so what I'm saying, this is a dialogue on the problem. Why? Because I am indicating that the paper will discuss what's happening today in computer-assisted language learning, and it will show that the field so far is resistant to change, and is resistant to change because the evidence from neuroscience is not looked at. Okay, so let's have a look what we've underlined here and crossed out here. So the findings are reviewed against the backdrop of a critique of current call research. And look, all this, which is called subordinated clause or sentence, didn't have to be there, but it's important to explicate this critique. Why are you critiquing? I'm critiquing them because I think that their research is based on old thinking. So continuously notice how I'm in this abstract, I'm saying there's recent work, amazing work with breakthroughs relevant to us. I will show you the implications, and you need it because you are stuck in old thinking. Do you see that sequence, how it is slowly developing? So I have it here to tell the reader that in this paper I'm offering something very new, and it may be important for the reader to read. So let's go to development. Notice that when I actually analyze the development, in this abstract, even though it's a sentence, this is a conceptual paper, you see here, and the sentence follows, but I think that all this is resolution. This one says the paper produces just concepts. There will be no data, there will be no control group, experimental group. That will be just data, pure. There won't be any data, it'll be just concepts. So development, expect in this paper just concepts, right? Concepts from neuroscience, concepts from education, concepts from computer-assisted language learning, and how I connect them. So expect that. Resolution. So the paper hopes, right? So the findings, what is it that why am I writing the whole thing? So what is to reveal? To inspire, call scholars and postgraduate researchers to expand the traditional sources. Okay, so this is to inspire them so that they expand what they do so far, and so that they integrate, we could write here, even new evidence from emerging research in order to modernize the field. Why? In order to modernize the field. So now here's the thing. This might be a bit difficult, but I just make this point, and because we will have activities like this again, you'll get really good at it. Every text has a moral. Every well-written text has a moral. Why? Why do you think I say that every well-written text has a moral? Maybe Mr. Lukman can stop the video now and you can have a discussion. Why would I suggest to you that every well-written text has a moral? And after the discussion, come back to me and compare your conclusion with mine. The reason why I say that every text has a moral is because we need to think, what is moral? Moral is a take-home message, right? I don't know where to write it. I might just write it underneath here so that you can see the English word. I'm sure you know how to spell it, but I will write it just the same. A take-home message, right? A moral is a take-home message. Something that the very reason for which a person wrote a text, right? So you can see here the resolution was a hope that the paper can inspire current researchers and upcoming researchers, right? Postgraduate students, postgraduate researchers. Postgraduate researchers like Mr. Lukman, right? Mr. Lukman is a postgraduate researcher. By the time he gets his doctoral title, he will be an academic. Right, so the paper hopes to inspire scholars to expand their readings and integrate new evidence. But why? Why? To modernize the field and its implications for teaching, right? Practice means teaching, really. So moral. So the moral of the story, of the abstract, it's implied. The moral is implied, right? But it's stuck here. We wrote this paper, or I wrote this paper, to inspire people to learn more so that we can modernize the field, right? So the take-home message is, to modernize our research, we need to expand our sources of information. To modernize our research, we need to expand our sources of information. I didn't write it in here, but it's implied. This is the moral, right? This is the moral. It's integrated in that paragraph. So when I do the analysis, I copied and pasted it here. But you can see that the paper begins by saying, good things are happening in medical sciences. We educators need to look into it. And the paper finishes saying, to modernize our research, we need to look into medical studies to learn from those people, especially since they talk about how the brain learns and constructs information. So that was a lot for today. So this class might actually take longer, right? So maybe Mr. Lukman will stop the video and the next part of the lesson will be another time. However, if you're still here full of energy, what I might ask you to do is to look at the sequence we have and the word groups we have underlined as inserted by me, by the author of this abstract. So look at the sequence, look at those underlined word groups, why they were there, and maybe you can now try to summarize this abstract. Can you summarize this abstract? Remember how we summarized the abstract before, not the abstract, the fable? Can you do something like this with this abstract? Can you summarize this abstract? I suggest you try. You may have started before. Now you can actually check if you would like to change some things and come back to this video once you are finished, so you can compare your approach with my summary, and then you can have a discussion about how you did it and how I did it. So Mr. Lukman, please stop the video. Let the students create their summaries, maybe redraft what they had done before, and when ready, please restart the video. So here's my summary on the right. You can see it here, right? So I have tried to follow, I tried to follow the same pattern as we had with the fable. So let me begin. The abstract is about the importance of informing the field of computer-assisted language learning about the recent discoveries in neuroscience. To demonstrate this importance, the author contrasts the neuroscience discoveries and the difference they can make to the field of call. The author suggests that the neuroscience discoveries can assist the field in overcoming its current intellectual stagnation. The paper presents its concepts. The paper was written hoping to inspire current and new generations of scholars to broaden the scope of evidence which they use in their research. According to the author, to modernize knowledge, researchers must expand the sources of their information. So, clearly, when you write the summary, you don't write those words focus or disturbance. They are just there for you to focus your thinking. So, anyway, compare my summary with your summaries, have a discussion with Mr. Luckman, and if you have points of grammar to discuss, look at the text and see how different word forms are present in the text and why those. So that's a detail that you can discuss as well. But for now, I think I finished. And I hope you can have a fruitful and invigorating discussion between one another and also with Mr. Luckman. Thank you.